Hey guys, so before we start, I just want to make a couple points. So first of all, I encourage you to stop, pause, rewind the video if you need to. I might be going a little bit fast, but it's hard to tell with doing this online. This is my first online video, so please bear with me. And also, another point I'll make is for the examples, I encourage you to do this on your own before going through the solutions either online or the ones that I'll be doing in this video. And also make sure you have your homework done. It needs to be done for Wednesday before we come to class because we need to move on. So don't forget we have our test on Tuesday, and hopefully you'll be doing this either Sunday night or Monday night. Alright? So to start, statistical reasoning is the way people reason with statistics or statistical ideas and how they make sense of statistical information. So really we're just studying statistics. So to start, we're going to be looking at exploring data. And just for a heads up, I'm just going to type in the answers for the fill in the blanks. So I might be typing a little bit fast. Just make sure you pause the video if it's going a little bit too fast. Alright, so when you want to represent a set of data by using only one number, you use a measure of central tendency. And we have three of the most common central tendencies. Our first one is the mean. So that is our first blank. So the mean is the average of a set of data. You can calculate the mean by dividing the sum of the values divided by the total number of values in that data set. So we have a nice little equation that we can make. So the mean is equal to, we represent the mean by x with a little bar over it. I'm just going to get a little bar here. And that is equal to the sum of the values. Just going to put an equation in here. So that is the sum of the values divided by the total number of values in your set. So we'll look at some examples later, but we're just going to move on to our second measure of central tendency. So just to repeat, the mean, which is represented by x with a bar over it, is equal to the sum of the values divided by the total number of values. So our second measure of central tendency is the median. And the median is your middle number in the data set. And I'm just going to make one point, is that if your data is not in order from smallest to largest, you must rearrange it. You can't just take it in that scattered order and just choose that middle number. You need to rearrange it. So one question for you is, what happens if there are two middle numbers? And there's actually a particular situation when this would occur. And this would occur when you have an even number of data points. So for example, suppose we had the numbers 3, 5, 9, and 8. If you rearrange those numbers, you get 3, 5, 8, and 9. And if you were to look at that middle number, that would be 5 and 8. But you can't have two middle numbers, so what do? So to calculate the middle number, you take the average of the two middle numbers. So you take the sum of the first two numbers, or those middle numbers would be 5 plus 8, and you would divide that by 2. And divide that by 2. Alright, so we'll look at some more examples later on, but if you were to take that, you should get about 6.5. Alright, so our third measure of central tendency is the mode. And the mode is the value that occurs most frequently. So there's maybe some key words there. Is the mode is your most frequent value. So a data set can have either 0 modes, 1 mode, or you can even have more than 1 mode in your data set. So to determine the mode, simply just find the number that repeats the most often. And maybe I'll make a point here is that when you have 0 modes, that's when you have numbers that they never repeat in that data set. So that could be numbers 1 through 9. Those numbers never repeat in that data set. So it would have 0 modes. One thing that we can also look at, which I will make a note, is that it's not a measure of central tendency, but what we can look at is the range, or we can also think of it as a dispersion. So how spread out is the data? So I'll make a note is that a measure of central tendency is a single measurement. When you're looking at the with dispersion, it's how spread out the data is, so you can have a number of values, not just one. So when we're thinking about dispersion, a common type of dispersion that we will look at in this course is called the range. You might have already heard this before. So the range is the difference between the highest value and the lowest value in that data set. I'll make a note is that it should be the highest subtracted or subtract the lowest. So you should not end up with a negative number. That is important. You can think of your range as a distance from your highest point to your lowest point. Distance is never negative, so your number should always be positive. Alright, so now we're going to do some examples. So like I said, pause the video, try these on your own, and I will post these solutions online. For this first example, I will go over it in this video, but for the rest of them, please do them up by your own, and the solutions will be posted on the wiki. So your first example, what measure of central tendency would an advertiser have used if the following claims were made? So the first one is Pepsi, the people's choice. So when you're thinking about this, it's the people's choice. The majority of the people chose this, so it is therefore the people's choice. So therefore it is the mode. Most people chose it, and it's the people's choice. For B, the average age of those participating in a marathon was 27.6 years. Our keyword here is average. And if you look back into your notes, what do we say was the average? And that's the mean. So for these types of examples, you have to look at your keywords. We have average and then the people's choice. So that one was just indicating that a majority of the people chose this, so that one indicates the mode. So here we have average, therefore it's the mean. Going on to C, most accidents in the city occur between 4:30 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. Look at your wording, most. So if most accidents, the most frequent value that's occurring, therefore it is the mode. For the last one, half the class scored higher than 61%. Here's your keyword, half. If you look back into your notes, that is, or what you can think, what is another term for half? It's usually the middle. So what are you thinking? Should be the median. So half is the middle, and therefore it is your median that we're talking about. So I'll just quickly go over question number 2. I'm not going to go through the solution, but I want to just make a few key points. I'll read out the question and then make a few key points. So number 2, given below are 2 charts that show the average daily temperatures for 2 Canadian cities, for Langley, BC, and Windsor, Ontario. So here you're given two charts, 2 sets of values, and in question A, construct a graph to illustrate the average daily temperatures in Langley and Windsor. So you have to do this all in one chart. So my hint to you is either use 2 different colors, or like you'll see my solutions, I use a circle and a star. This circle represents Langley values and the star represents Windsor values. So I'll make few more points I'll make. You need to give your graph a title. And you also need to label your X and Y axis and give those values a name. So I'll give you a hint here. The month is your x-axis. Your y-axis will be the average daily temperature, which I'd be fine if you just labeled it as temperature in degrees Celsius. It's important to label the degrees because someone outside of this classroom looking at your work could say, oh, they're working in Fahrenheit. So make sure you include that. And if you want just a little hint, when I was doing my questions, I gave the spacing for the x-axis. Every about 1.5 bars I gave you, I would put in a new month. And then for the temperature, I went up, every 2 lines was 3 degrees. So I'll post the solutions online, and this concludes our video. Make sure you do your homework for Wednesday.